For you guys that don't know, at the hotel that they booked us at, there was a Star Trek convention. So, I got to smoke joints with Cleongs and Ferengi, talk about VBS malware. You could have took out a gun, shot me right in the head, and I would have died a happy man. So we're going to start. I am Godman666. I have over 15 years of experience in carding and Darknet market operations. What you're going to learn here is educational focus, real consequences, and unfiltered reality. Now, I am doing this. Everybody thinks I'm crazy, but I'm doing this in an effort to put all the past behind me, try to, find a rebel job or something. So let's get into it. So I want to say, for people like me, I figured, I know a bunch of people, they start young. When your moral compass is not really developed all the way, and you fall into holes, get into carding, all kinds of other things. So I started at 16. Just like most people, I started writing AIM booters, MSM booters, trying to kick off my friends, and then it escalated to that. I met a guy, and it's literally probably the most malicious person I've ever met in my life to this day. But I met a friend that used to get cards, and this was back during Carter's Planet and Shadow Crew days. And he would be getting these cards from this guy named Rippleman G. And in order for us to get them, he had a porn site. And back then it wasn't videos, it was straight pictures. And he would make us look through all these pictures to make sure his banner was there. And if we did 1,000, we'd get 10 cards. It was, 16, it was quite a payoff. So, this is back in the early 2000s. So, back then you would just freeproxy.com, find a Chinese proxy, plug in the card details and stuff would show up. I really didn't know what I was getting into, but it was always cool, like a box of brass knuckles would show up. I would order stuff from Europe. I had every hat I could think of. It was pretty good. We would be able to get Food Lion gift cards and, $500 and fill up the fridge with beer. It was awesome. So after a while, we got in good with this guy, Rippleman G, and he eventually taught us how to get our own cards. So from there, we would get our own cards. Now, the person I was with, he only had 6th grade education, but he was good with the computers, but he couldn't really type. So I would have to do all the typing to all these people. And we would sell the databases of the cards back then via eGold. And we would do the transaction, and a big old drop of money would come to a box of money would come to our drop, like big, plastic. So one day, my mom's cleaning my room, looks behind the closet, and finds a bunch of money back there. It's hard to explain where all that came from at that age, Yeah, it was wild. Definitely got grounded for that one. Anyway, so I'm moving on with the carding things. I really think you haven't lived if you haven't war driving on a skateboard. That was always, I was going around town on my skateboard. So what worked on that was I found a way to make income, found a way to get all these cards. What didn't work was it was very illegal. You just worried about getting, arrested and stuff. As a matter of fact, the guy who was my partner at the time, his mom and dad split, and then the mom didn't want to keep him no more, so she turned him in to the police and got him arrested for all this carding stuff. It was quite bullshit, if you ask me. All right, so next we're going to talk about the reality of the operations. Again, when you're carding stuff, you're trying to get stuff shipped to you that you don't really, want them to know your address. So these are called drops. People use them to ship drugs. You can, get money, boxes of money, or all your stolen stuff can be shipped there. Now, what happens though is sometimes the cops get wise to it. They'll get hit. One day, I was walking to the bus stop, and I was walking. There's a street like this, and I was using a drop around the corner, and I'm walking, waiting for the bus, and I see all these police roll up to the house. I'm like, oh, they're gonna raid my drop. So I got off the stop, and I go, and I literally watched them kick in an empty house. It was, I thought it was funny, but that could have been, 2 days later, I could have went picked up something that could have got me then. So, you really, when they say OPSEC and stuff, and when you do these drops and stuff, you really got to pay attention. Like when I would pick my drops, I would find, for rent signs, places that are empty. You could, you can find them like on rent sites. You know what I'm talking about. So, drops, all right. So the technical progression was, we were using sniffers, and we were I was doing spamming to get the cards. And after a while, you're 16, 17, you're making all this money, you start getting lazy, you start making mistakes. And I had my friend, he got arrested. So I stepped away. I got away from the carding, turned 18, moved to Austin, Texas, and lived in a punk rock house on the floor for about 2 years. It was pretty awesome. Traveling the country was great. But there's no money in that. Zero money. So I had to get back into it. So about after 2-3 years, Bitcoin was coming around. You no longer needed e-gold. You can do these transactions with Bitcoin. I saw the Silk Road for the first time, and I thought it was just amazing. They get a bad rap, but these Darknet marketplaces, especially with Ross's vision on that, is they make the purchase of drugs a lot safer. So I was talking to somebody, and I was saying, would you go give your local dealer a 1-star review? Well, what's gonna happen? He'll probably knock your teeth in. So, you can have these, you can review it, everybody can do the exchanges, and it's a very safe place. There's really no violence to it. So I thought that was really cool. But again, I have to make money, so I started looking at these places, and Silk Road wouldn't allow cards at the time. So I figured like, okay, I think I'm just gonna start cloning the website, see if I could catch deposit addresses. And that's the start of my whole fishing. I did that and it just shot off. So I would do the fishing. I would, try to figure out the best way. I would constantly progress, so there was a Firefox tab back in the day that I put on tour where you could clone the site and they would link everything together. You didn't have to manually do it. So all you had to do was put your site up there, put the wallet, some QR code. You didn't even have to change the wallet addresses at the time. And it would be easy money. So the market cycles, right? So as we know, Silk Road got busted. And everybody was down, back then the Bitcoin exchanges were directly tied to them. So Bitcoin would fall too, And it was crazy because I thought it was for sure the end. And then 2 days later, Silk Road 2 pops back up. Or they brought it back. And that stayed around for a while. So I realized, hey, these drug guys aren't going anywhere. this is gonna be here a while. And I liked that. So I was like, okay, this is where I'm gonna make my money. Then, after the fall of Silk Road 2, and the other markets that were coming on, I would say Abraxas, Black Bank. There was millions of them. They all started popping up. And then from there, I noticed on tour, there was tour carding forum. So I got to meet people on there. I had a background in cards. I knew a couple people on there, but I noticed that the skill level there was a lot higher. It's a lot better. And I realized, hey, I'm going to really have to work at this if I'm going to make anything out of it. So I got back into carding again. I was getting secondhand cards, selling them. It was a really big thing. Back then, who becomes the owner of Alpha Bay was a carder too. And he literally wrote the book on credit card fraud. That was back then when people would bang Stripe, We'd get the credit card reader, get the cards, be wiping cards all day with Stripe and getting them like that. So I started selling cards on Evolution. I got cool with some people, and then they exit scammed. And these are just the natural cycles of how the markets and Evolution places work on these things. There's a time limit on them. You started, I would say, about 4 years before it's probably best to cut them out. So Alpha Bay came on. Back then, he wanted to do it like an eBay trading site, like you did auctions and stuff. Nobody was using it. And then me, trying to find another way to make money, because I'm always trying to figure it out. Desperately, I tried to sell drugs. Now, when I say try, it was successful, but it was way more work than I thought. I remember making my account on Alpha Bay, making it, really cool with like the little AK guns and, all the kind of your profile to make it look where somebody would want to buy from you. One day, I log on, and my account flooded with orders. I was like, how the hell did this happen? And I realized Deep Web put my vendor profile on there and made an article saying how to buy from Alpha Bay. And back then I was selling cocaine because I realized it was going for 90 a gram and I could get it for 15. I was like, I'm gonna just completely pillage and make money. Little did I know, putting drugs in boxes it's a lot of work. You gotta wear the double gloves. You gotta vacuum seal things. I used to get used clothes and I would put them in like bras or inside a pants pocket of some jeans and put it in a flat rate box. It was nice. I made almost like $150,000 in 6 months. It was pretty cool. I even had like the little local biker gangs dropping off my packages. The little mini Escobar. And then, the thing too is, I used to get it from like this cartel dude in Houston, and they loved me. I would come back with the money early, and then they were like, how are you getting rid of this so quick? And I was like, okay, I'm coming right back. And I brought my laptop. I'm like, I'm selling it on here. And this guy was just like completely mind blown. He used to own in Houston, they have these after-hour clubs. After the bar is closed, they have clubs after hours. And you go to these clubs, and there'll be like a line out of the bathroom, but there's actually some guy just serving up Coke bags in the toilet.